Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1279B, and today's date is May 14th, 2017, and the title of the episode is the Deep State Holding the World for Ransom? Now, before I get started, I have two announcements. First, I just want to wish all those people celebrating Mother's Day, Happy Mother's Day. Two, I uploaded an interview with Gregory Mannarino on the X22 Report Spotlight YouTube channel, and all you have to do is go over to YouTube, type in X22 Report Spotlight. It will bring you to the video, or you can come over to the x22report.com site, scroll down a little bit, look over to your right-hand side, you'll see the video there, or you can go to newssentinel.com, same thing, scroll down a little bit, look over to your right-hand side, you can play the video right on the site. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, we can see the chaos is completely continuing in the Trump administration, and I don't believe it's going to end anytime soon. He wants to keep the corporate media, he wants to keep the individuals in government on their toes, and he wants it very confusing because he wants everyone to believe that he's this crazy individual who is running government. And a crazy person can do a lot of things because you know why? He's crazy. And a lot of people saying, well, oh my God, look what he's doing. He's crazy. And it allows him to do things that normally you wouldn't be able to do under circumstances where you'd be like, well, why did he do this? He wasn't talking like this before. But now what the corporate media and what everyone else is doing is they're just saying that he's crazy, he's losing it, he's on a rampage. And if you notice, they continually say this. He's angry. And this is actually perfect. Because we know a lot of individuals in his administration, well, did he really want these individuals, or was he pressured by the Republican Party to put certain people in place? Remember, a lot of the Republicans, a lot of the Democrats, they're part of the deep state. They're part of the globalist agenda. They're part of all of this. And what he's doing right now, remember, Comey was a banker. He worked for HSBC. He knew that there was money laundering from drug traffickers within the banking system. Then he became the head of the FBI, because that is a huge stretch. I mean, his resume must have been incredible. No, it was because he was a banker. That's why he was allowed to become the head of the FBI. If you notice, they like bankers in certain positions, and I'm talking about the globalists, the deep state, the central bankers. And right now, the corporate media is out there saying that Trump is getting ready to basically remove many individuals from his administration, like Reince Priebus, maybe Spicer, and many others. And they're naming all these different names. And what we need to understand is eventually he will be removing all these individuals because he understands that most of these individuals are not working with him. Remember, he's not a stupid man. He's been in business for a long time. He knows how to work deals. He knows how to work people. He knows how to play people. Yes, he's aggressive. Yes, he's a New Yorker. Yes, he doesn't do things like people like him to do. And again, the globalists, the deep state, the central bank, they're still trying to control him in every way possible. Actually, they're trying to bury him if they possibly can. And this is why they're continually bringing up the idea of Russian collusion. The Russians hacked the election system, Russians, because they really have nothing else at this point. And we can see that this is all they're talking about because they're trying to find one little thing. And, you know, maybe there was an investment out in a different country that might have had ties to Russia. Well, yes, as business people, especially billionaires. I mean, think about it. Someone who is in business around the world eventually does business with someone who has done business with Russia, or you've even done business with Russia, because before Putin took over the central bank, before it was Russian aggression, there were many individuals, many millionaires, billionaires that were doing business in Russia. Actually, there are corporations that actually have businesses in Russia. So we can see, to create this idea of collusion, they really have no evidence. And if they did have evidence, they'd come out with it already. They would just display it all over the place. Believe me, the Wall Street Journal, CNN, it would be all over the place. And remember, those are the mouthpieces of the deep state. Now, what's very interesting, back when the elections were happening, they needed to show that Russia did hack the election systems. And they actually had a Russian hacker, a Russian man, who was hacking U.S. companies. And the FBI knew who he was. They knew exactly what he was doing. And he was Russian. So they took this individual. And remember, what the FBI does, it creates patsies. They create the individuals they need. And how do they do this? Well, they promise them things. And they say, listen, if you do this, we will do that. And this is what they did with this individual. The individual who was hacking corporations. Now, do they have proof of this? Maybe, maybe not. Doesn't really matter. What they did is they offered him immunity to all of those charges in exchange for accepting responsibility for the cyber attacks targeting the Democratic nominee Hillary Clinton. Now, FBI agents promised Mr. Nuclein money, American citizenship, and a free apartment for taking the fall over hacking the Clinton campaign. Now, he wrote a letter, and he laid it out exactly how the FBI did this. He said, they told me, you'll have to confess to breaking into Clinton's inbox for President Trump on behalf of Russian President Putin. And according to Nuclein, the Russian hacker, the proposal was made during the conversations between the 14th and 15th of November. The following conversation then took place on February 7th. And basically, they were setting him up just like we've seen the FBI do in the past. And the FBI right now, well, they're not commenting on any of this. Because we can see right now, they needed a patsy. They needed someone to blame this on. Because they were trying to create this case that Russia was behind all this. Just like Russia was behind the hacking of the French elections, even though they were done in paper ballots. And the Russians were hacking Germany elections. If you notice, they're only hacking those countries where they want their candidates, the central bankers, the globalists, the deep state individuals who are in power to stay in power. And those people who are trying to get into power, they want those people in power. So they need to make up the entire story that if things go south, it was because of Russia. And we can see right now, this is what they've been doing all along. And we can see right now there are certain individuals that are coming forth saying, yeah, this is the way it really happened. Now, we need to go back in time where the United States set up the coup d'etat in Ukraine, where they ousted the elected leader, they put in a puppet government, and basically they put the country into so much debt that it can't operate. And an individual is coming forward because we know that the central banks, this is what they do. They take over a country, and I'm talking about the deep state, the central banks. They basically plunge the country into economic turmoil. They put them into so much debt they can't operate. And then they start buying off a lot of their assets or taking a lot of their assets. Well, the National Bank of Ukraine revealed the shocking secrets concerning the gold and foreign exchange reserves of the country. The former head of the Ukrainian currency regulator, Sergei Arbuzov, stated that Ukrainian gold, the international gold and foreign exchange reserves, doesn't belong to the country anymore. 75% of all Ukrainian reserves are under the control of what? The IMF, as repayment of the numerous debts on loans granted to the country. Now, I thought the central bankers thought gold was a complete barbarous relic, that it's not really money, it means nothing, but they like to take it. And what we're seeing, and this is why a lot of individuals don't understand what's going on here, yes, central banks are accumulating gold, but they're not out there on the markets purchasing it. They're stealing it from countries. And they've been doing this for a long time. He said, in 3 years, the foreign exchange reserves lost 15 tons of gold. And he's saying that the IMF continually comes in and takes more and more of this gold. Because what the central banks do is they do this to every country. Look what's happening to Greece. Look what's happening to Cyprus. Look what's happening to the world. The central banks give us worthless paper. They don't want this. They create this for free. They want the real assets. They want land. They want gold. They want oil. They want the assets of the countries. So they'll continually give the country paper and ink or electronic currency because it's worth nothing, because they created it out of thin air, and they want the real stuff. And this is proof that this is what they've been doing. Now, North Korea, they have fired another missile which is kind of meaningless because if you go back to 2007, 2008, all the way up to the present time, they've been testing missiles all along. It's not like this is a surprise or anything, and we went over this in past reports. But South Korea president says, I'm still open for dialogue with North Korea. It makes no difference if this individual or the country fired a missile. All countries fire missiles, and they test their defensive systems. And this is what North Korea is doing. And of course, as we can see right now, that North Korea is still open to having dialogues with the Trump administration. Trump said, yes, we will have dialogues if the conditions are right. Now, there is a report out there that Trump is looking to place more sanctions on North Korea because they fired a missile. Now, he's not invading, and remember, he still has to play with the deep state. He still has to make them think that, okay, yes, I would still go into North Korea, I would still go into Syria, but placing sanctions on North Korea doesn't really do anything at this point, because right now, North Korea, well, they're hurting from sanctions right now. More sanctions, guess what? It's not going to make it worse for them. They're already struggling. This is why they started to sell opium to basically keep the country operating. And of course, as their trade grew and grew and grew, the CIA was taking notice. And as more sanctions were placed on North Korea, the opium trade got larger and larger and larger, because this was the source of North Korea making funds for the country to operate. Now, the Russian missile warning system went off, and Russia said, yes, we picked up the missile, and the missile was 23 minutes in flight, and it didn't head towards Russia. It was moving away from Russia. So there was no threat there, and basically it landed in the Sea of Japan. We see Japan is looking at this and saying, okay, we need to protect ourselves, because we can see that North Korea, well, they're just continually firing missiles like every other country. And Japan is reportedly considering adopting the land-based version of the Aegis missile system defense system over the THAAD system that South Korea has taken on. And we can see right now the South Korean president, Moon Jae-in, that he wants to talk to the United States about the missile system, because he feels that there is no need for this missile system to be in South Korea. And we know right now that the deep state, they are continually pushing war. If you look at the propaganda in the corporate media and around the world, all they continually do is push the propaganda that North Korea is going to attack, Russia's coming for us, and they keep this ongoing to keep us all on edge. In the meantime, we can see China, South Korea, parts of the Trump administration trying to calm the situation down, but making the deep state think that, yes, the United States is still on their side. And when I say the United States, I'm talking about the Trump administration. We see China right now. They are going to be deploying an AWACS aircraft near the South China Sea. And remember, these nations, they're all on edge because they don't know what the deep state is going to, what they're going to do. Because they've seen in the past what the deep state does. They understand that they will push for war. So Beijing right now deployed a pair of state-of-the-art Shanzi KG-500 aircraft, and this is going to be deployed, and they're going to be keeping an eye on what the deep state is doing and what they are doing. We see the BBC out there, and they're saying that they have evidence that, yes, Syria was behind the Syrian chemical weapons attack, and you can see right now that they're just continually pushing the propaganda out there. And the question is, why are they continually pushing the propaganda out there? Because they're trying to figure out a way to get this invasion started. And again, they have no proof. Most of their information from the report is made by individuals that remain anonymous. They won't say where the evidence was gathered. They won't give any details about anything. They're just saying that they have this proof and you need to believe us. Well, before we invade anywhere, before we go to war, don't you think it's time that they show us conclusive proof that this country actually did it, and show all the evidence and how it's completely connected, instead of saying, yes, it's coming from this anonymous people, we have this evidence, but we can't show you. Just please believe us. I think that time has passed now, and now it's time for them to show all the proof they have and drop the propaganda, and that's where the problem comes in. Now, last report before that, we were showing these satellite pictures, actually pictures from a drone, showing the bases near the Syrian border. And according to reports, the Syrian armed forces, they had a UAV which captured footage of a large military buildup, believed to be 43 kilometers inside Jordan, south of its border with Syria. Images of the footage were released by the various media outlets, and those images show a large buildup of light heavy equipment, including tanks and APCs, and are claimed by the publisher to be U.S. and UK special forces aided with heavy armor alongside the Jordanian military presence. Now, when we look at this, the story doesn't really add up, and when we take a very close look at this, something doesn't seem right. Now, the mentioned camp is in fact one of the largest armor depots of the Jordanian army, and again, this is 48 kilometers away from the border of Syria. By doing a small comparison between the available satellite images and claimed images taken by the drone, the following is observed. Most of the armor at the camp have not been moved since at least 2015, and most likely that the camp has nothing to do with recent U.S. interest in deploying troops to southern Syria to fight the Islamic State. Also, if the mentioned camp really had U.S. and UK troops, how could a drone fly 48 kilometers into Jordanian airspace, capture the images, and leave undetected? Keep in mind, of course, that the Jordanian airspace has been under U.S. protection since 2012. What we're looking at right now, most likely, is a complete diversion, and the corporate media is out there saying that this is where they're building up the forces, this is where the attack is going to happen. I think it's going to happen someplace completely different. I think this was put out there as a propaganda technique. Do I think it's going to be U.S. soldiers and UK soldiers and the coalition forces? No, I think it's going to be paid mercenaries that they're building up, giving them equipment, but we'll have to wait and see. Now, if there is an event, I believe the invasion will include U.S. soldiers, coalition forces, because they'll try to convince the Trump administration that we have to invade because of this gigantic event. Do I think it's going to come from this area? No, I think this was a complete setup because the corporate media was pushing it way too hard, showing these pictures and making everyone believe that this is where it was coming from. And I think this is a complete diversion of where it will be coming from. Now, we can see that this cyber attack, this ransomware, well, it hit many different areas. It hit and this is the WannaCry ransomware attack, which was out there since March, actually almost a year ago. And the security holes in all these different systems, well, that was created by the United States. And what's very interesting about this is that it hit many, many countries, and it hit many, many different places, like the British Public Health Services, the world's fifth largest employer with about 1.7 million staff. Germany's Deutsche Bahn national railway operator was affected. Renault, the French automobile giant, was hit. We see that Russian banks, railways, they were hit. Telefonica, the Spanish telephone giant, said it was attacked by the ransomware. We see that many, many, many countries were hit. Now, one country that wasn't really hit too hard was the United States. That's very interesting right off the bat. Yes, FedEx did report that they were hit with the malware, but they quickly cleaned it up. Now, remember, Microsoft had a patch back in March, and they're saying a lot of these companies, well, they never applied the patch. China was also hit, very interestingly, and they were hit not just in different companies, but their ATM machines, they were taken offline. I mean, the traffic police were hit, immigration authorities were hit, and we can see that this whole thing was being done across the world. So the world is being held for ransom right now. So the question is the deep state sending a message? And I believe there's many different agendas associated with this. The deep state is sending a message to the world that, listen, we're still in control and we can do whatever we want to your systems. Look at this. The second agenda, I do believe, and I think they're going to make a really big deal about this maybe later on this week, where Bitcoin was used for the currency transfer, where they're going to say, okay, Bitcoin is something that these criminals use, and we need to have some type of regulation, or we need to outlaw Bitcoin or something like that, which I can see this is what the central banks would want because it's decentralized. They have no control over it. And I think there's many different agendas associated with this. And when we look at this, we can see that the world is basically being held for ransom. And I think it's a message from the deep state. Now, the United States, the deep state, they're never going to say they're part of this. This will be blamed on someone else. But I think this was the message to all of these countries. Don't mess with us, because we can control every aspect of your country. We can bring it down in a second. Now, something very interesting, a UK security researcher has accidentally halted the spread of the ransomware. Now, he was looking at the code. He's 22 years old. His name that he goes by is Malware Tech. And he was looking at the code and said, I found something very interesting in the code, and it looks like it is a kill switch. Now, basically, his discovery, well, it didn't repair the damage done by the ransomware, but it did stop it from spreading to new computers. Now, what exactly did he discover? The researcher first noticed that the malware was trying to contact a specific web address every time it affected a new computer. But the web address it was trying to contact, along with jumble of letters, it has not been registered. So Malware Tech decided to register it and bought it for $10.69. This was a domain that he purchased. Owning it would let him see where computers were accessing it from and give him an idea of how the widespread ransomware was. So by doing so, he triggered part of the ransomware's code that told it to continually spread, and it stopped it in its tracks. So the type of code is known as a kill switch, which some attackers use to halt the spread of the software if things get out of hand. He tested it, and it worked. It completely stopped the ransomware from spreading. Now, he thinks the code was originally designed to thwart researchers trying to investigate the ransomware, but it backfired by letting them remotely disable it. And it doesn't mean that the ransomware is defeated, because those computers that are infected, they are still infected. So what we're looking at right now, it looks like there's many different agendas associated with this ransomware, and I do believe this is coming from the deep state. This is going to be a hit on Bitcoin, and they're sending a message to all of the countries saying, listen, don't mess with us. We will bring you down. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.